Sports. I'm Bill Barrows. To my left is Jim Landrum. To my far right is Coach Steve McClure. Rick Harness isn't here this week. Some excuse about having to be with family, and where are they? Wisconsin or
Golf
somewhere?
trip in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of stories on
Oh
the way
yeah,
back.
and it'll all be lies. But today our special guest is historian Pete Jones, who's sitting here next to me. Um, Pete is one of these people. He's a historian. I mean, a true historian. But he's also one of these people that does not come unprepared for anything. How many discussions have we had about this?
Several.
Just a little background. Pete is, like I said, he's one of our county historians. Him and Alec Ginnon back here is actually our official county historian now. But Pete's been instrumental in the museum for a lot of years. He was a history teacher at Manchester High School when I was in school. Think about
Wow.
that, Coach.
They had high school back
Yeah,
then?
they had high school.
Wow.
One room school?
Quick story, Pete's mother, Martha, was our English teacher in high school. And this past Saturday, we had our 50th class reunion. I know I don't look that old, Tom, but yeah. So anyway,
Says who?
Jeff Galley was giving us the tour, and we get upstairs, and we're at the top of the stairs there, and he's talking about the way things are done electronically nowadays, and all this and that, and said, well, as you can see, we've got cameras here and all this and that. And I said, that was Martha Jones's room right there when I was in high school, and I said, they didn't need cameras when Martha was here.
One of those that had eyes in the back of her head.
You bet. And she was such a sweetheart. And I'm not saying that because she's your mother. She was. She was a sweetheart. Today we are here to discuss the Wabash Athletic Association. And Pete is an expert on this. I'll be quite honest. He won't tell you that, but he is. And Pete, I'll just give us a start here. Now, here's what I told Jim. Jim asked me about this the other day. Is this kind of like the league that these guys played in? I know you'll get to it, but this was kind of a precursor to the NFL, am I right?
In a way it was, yeah, not necessarily right here in Wabash. But this football movement, so to speak, had its beginning in the East. And the game caught on. Football wasn't important enough until the 1890s. But suddenly people became interested in football, and teams started to form. This was all informal, and not necessarily in organized leagues, but the movement seems to have started in the East, particularly Pennsylvania and Ohio. And there were teams similar to the WAA in Canton, Ohio, for example, and Massillon, Ohio, which are still big names in football today.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it was a mix of amateur players and professionals. The professionals that they brought in were called ringers. And many of those were college stars, and they would come and play on Sunday.
That was
For
taboo,
$25 or $30 a game, but they would often play under assumed names, so we don't know. For example, Augusta Ray, with local connections, obviously. Did Augusta Ray ever play for the WAA? Well, we don't know, because sometimes ringers would not use their names. But Dave DeRay, Gus's grandfather, seems to think that Gus did play for 2 or 3 of the teams in this area.
Maybe 2 in the same day for all we know.
Well, sometimes. And that in part is why why they played on Sunday. They could get these ringers from college teams who played on Saturday, and give them $25 or $30, and they would come to places like Fort Wayne or Wabash or Pine Village. We'll talk about Pine Village in a little while. And now, there were no rules and regulations on college football in those days. The NCAA didn't exist. It didn't start till 1926. The next year's the centennial year
Right.
of the NCAA. So eventually, by 1898, let's say the late 1890s, the game was catching on in northern Indiana, and and I might mention too, this movement came through the northern states. In the southern states, for the most part, Sunday football was taboo. The Baptists were a strong force there, and they were not going to have Sunday football.
So that's why Rick didn't show up today.
That's the reason. But here, the first game on record for the WAA was in early November in 1898, and it was played not on the Carroll Street Park, but it was played. Art Jason is out here in the audience, and Art will realize this: the Hog Lot. Doherty's Hog Lot, which I think was in front of, to the north of the factory, to the north of B. Walter.
Okay.
Everything I've read indicates that anyway.
And it was called the Hog Lot because Josiah Doherty, who had a hog packing plant in what is now part of City Park, used that area in front of the factory as a holding lot for live hogs. So exactly where the field was, I'm not certain. But anyway, the first game was held there in November of 1898. Harry Hutchins of Hutchins Laundry and a fellow named Ed Colbert was that they had been instrumental in beginning to talk football with the WAA. And the WAA received a challenge from a team in North Manchester. So the team from North Manchester came here, and the game was at the Hog Lot in front of just a couple of hundred spectators. And Wabash won 44-0. Well, that put some motivation into the football program here right away. And other people came and wanted to play football, so it gets off the ground in just a few days in 1898. And they scheduled a game on Thanksgiving Day, just before Thanksgiving, with a similar team in Huntington. And the Wabash team, big stuff now. They'd won 44-0. They were undefeated. This is a great start. They even hired a special train on the Wabash Railroad to take the team and fans to Huntington.
All the way
Love this.
Well, Huntington won 28-0.
Well, of course.
Jim's from Huntington.
So now we know
See,
where all these rivalries began.
That's right.
There.
That's right.
And that deflated the team. Let me say a couple of words about Harry Hutchins. By the way, we're going to take some off ramps here during this discussion.
I've got one you don't know about too.
I hope. But so Wabash came back with its head hanging low, and people wondered, would there ever be another ball game? Well, there was, but that didn't happen until 1899, and Wabash won that game. Right now I've forgotten who the opponent was in 1899. But the real WAA team gets off the ground in 1900, and between 1900 and 1912, they won 54 games, lost 5,
No.
But wait a minute. Yeah, they won 55, they lost 4, they tied 2. And they outscored their opponents 1,801 to 126.
Wow.
So this was pretty powerful stuff by this time.
Yeah.
Well, and the powerful stuff is one thing, but we're not playing against, we're not playing against Tin Cup here. We're playing against teams from Chicago and several other places.
Yeah, a little bit later on.
Mhm, okay.
When yeah.
I'm way ahead,
Yeah,
sorry.
They built their schedule, and it got tougher and tougher as the years went by. Now, Harry Hutchins had the laundry, and the building still stands over here at Canal and Huntington Street.
It's now the Bulldog Battery
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
offices.
And the people who took over Bulldog Battery, they did I think, an unforgivable thing. When they remodeled the facade of their building, they covered up what appeared to be a cornerstone. It really wasn't a true cornerstone, but it was a slab of rock engraved as a kind of memorial to Harry Hutchins for his work with the WAAT.
Well,
So
I
I
have-
assume some night I may go over there and rip off that.
Well, you may not have to worry about it because I know the guy that is the plant manager reasonably well,
Well,
and I may just go over and beat on his desk a little bit.
let's get it uncovered.
All right, let's get it done.
Bring your pen
But
and
Harry
hammer, too.
was the driving force, and as long as Harry was involved with the team, it was successful. Harry left in 1912. He needed to devote more time to his business, and the team really went downhill after that. But they had some glory times in between. Go back to the hog lot for a moment, and here's one of those off ramps, because Josiah Doherty had this packing plant over in part of City Park.
I can take you right to it.
Yeah, there's still, you can still see a foundation of one of the
Mhm.
buildings over there. And he was a wealthy guy. He had some health problems, and his doctor said, what you need to do is go west. You need mountain air.
Yep.
And in 1871, Josiah Doherty becomes a part of the first party of tourists to go into what is now Yellowstone Park.
Hmm.
And Josiah struck a friendship on that trip with a man named Thrasher, A.F. Thrasher, the photographer. And this was in the days of the glass plate photographs. Thrasher took more than 1,000 pictures in Yellowstone, very, very early. He wasn't the first photographer into that area, but second or third. And Josiah Doherty brings Thrasher back to Wabash. And presumably, Thrasher brings his glass plate negatives with him. And Thrasher did some work around here. He linked up with an existing photographer here whose name I do not know. And the museum has some of Thrasher's photos. And Thrasher left here after a year or two and went to Red Lodge, Montana, and opened a studio there. Now, what became of those glass plates of Yellowstone? They would be so valuable today. I would love for somebody to find those in
If
the
they're-
wall of an attic or something.
If they're in this building, Jeff will find them.
Oh, they are.
And they might be, I mean,
Well,
you never know.
Well.
He's still trying to find, between him and Alec.
all right.
Just a little sidebar here. Doherty's daughter was Marie Doherty Webster.
Yes.
I'm throwing this in because my wife is watching this, and she was the first one that ever commercialized quilt patterns
Hmm.
and sold them national, or ended up selling them nationally, so I just wanted to make
Well,
sure
you see
that
that-
my wife sees
That's
this.
that's another off-ramp.
Yep, another off-ramp.
that we've got.
And the name of your wife's business is?
Nancy J's family.
Oh, okay, I
There you
just
go.
wanted to know.
And she is
No
a sponsor,
pitch.
so this is okay.
Well, the Yellowstone Park headquarters are up at the north end of the park, at Mammoth Hot Springs. And we stopped there a few years ago, and I went in and I asked about Thrasher. And I explained I was from Wabash, and people were very nice, they were interested, and I said, unfortunately, nobody knows where those glass plates are. And then we stopped there more recently, and I went in and, by luck, same ranger was working there, and I said, I'm from Wabash, and he said, oh, you found the glass plate. And I said, no, I was hoping you had. But anyway, that's an off-ramp that I just had to mention. One of the great rivals to the Wabash team was the Pine Village team. Now, Pine Village is on Indiana 26, west of Lafayette. And a little town. In fact, the population in the 1900s was less than 500 of what it is today. But they fielded one of the stronger teams. In fact, Pine Village was one of the few teams that beat Wabash not once, but twice. And several years ago, I went to Pine Village. I wanted to find where the football field was. It was down along the creek in a flat area. And but I also discovered over there, a mile east of Pine Village, is probably the last surviving bridge ever made by the Wabash Bridge and Iron Works. Now, I drove across it very carefully because it was built in 1896 and still carrying traffic.
Who would know that, other than I Jones?
And, I don't know, the bridge may have been replaced by this time, but fortunately, the road that it's on is only about a mile long. It connects two other roads, so it's not heavily used. I suspect maybe that bridge is still there. So,
Wow.
if you ever go to Pine Village,
You know I'm going.
Well,
right?
Yeah, you have to.
go a mile east and see if that bridge is still there. And then drive into town and find the football field down in the lowlands along the creek.
I'll have to ask Lane if he
Yeah.
knows about that. My brother-in-law is West Lafayette, and he's been there for years, and he gets around.
Well,
And I'll say, okay, Lane, here's one for you, baby.
Yeah.
send him over there, yeah. Now, Pine Village had a tremendous following for a little town of less than 500. And that is due in part to the fact that they moved some of their home games into Lafayette, where they could draw a better till at the gate. And Pine Village, one year, and I wish I knew which year it was, but I don't. They raised enough money, $400, to bring Jim Thorpe out from.
Oh,
Gee
my.
whiz.
Could you
Wow.
imagine?
And so he plays one Sunday for Pine Village, and of course that drew a lot of people to that game. Wabash was not involved in that game.
That's amazing. I mean, in today's, I don't even know the name you'd use, but Jim Thorpe was like the best,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I didn't run the figures. I don't know what the $400 in, let's say, 1900 would be worth today. But it was a significant sum of money.
It's interesting you bring that up, Pete. Something you mentioned early on, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but I'm a retired banker, so I like to put
Here we go.
dollars and cents to this. The 25 or 30 bucks the guys got as professionals for a game, that sounds like pocket change, right? that had to be a lot of money
Yeah.
back when this was done. I mean, this wasn't chump change.
Yeah.
And you see, Pine Village was close enough to South Bend that they could bring people down from Notre Dame. So they were in the catbird seat, so to speak.
Sidebar. Recently, I read a book called The Five Legends, and it's the 5 guys who started the NFL. And that was significantly later,
Yeah.
around 20 years later.
Yeah.
Jim Thorpe was still playing on those teams.
Is that right?
Yes. I mean, think about that. That's late in his late 30s, early 40s, and he was still an impact athlete for quite a while. My grandfather played against him when he played for the Canton Bulldogs, or at least that's the legend
Well,
that my grandmother used to
amazing.
tell us. My grandfather played on the Wabash High School team in 1915 and 16.
wow, early on.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, go ahead, sorry.
Well, he was certainly one of the world's greatest athletes in his time,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
And a great draw at the gate in Lafayette.
Mhm.
Yeah, had to be. So anyway, put that on your list. Go see that bridge in Pine Village and go down and find the football field.
Am I correct in that the bridge works, where the bridges were manufactured, is where, for us who are of a certain age, where General Tire was?
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was General Tire, then Service Motor Corporation, or was Bridgeworks, then Service Motor Corporation,
Yeah.
then General Tire,
Yeah.
correct?
Well, no, there's another company before General Tire.
Really?
Yeah. It'll come to me.
Okay.
But they weren't there very long. It didn't leave much of an impact. So, yeah. Now, Pine Village was the smallest town that I have ever found to field a football team like the ones that
Not
we're
a
talking
surprise.
about. By the way, if you're really hooked on this, there's a book called The Sunday Game. This is from the archives upstairs.
Pete turned me on to this. I read it cover to cover. It is amazing.
And it's out of print now, but you can order it through Abe Books. You can find it on Abe Books.
Before we go any further, before we get past the subject matter of Hutchins.
Yeah.
I was feeling around downstairs, whatever, didn't even see it, walked by it several times. And one of the girls saw it and brought it upstairs yesterday, and I want you to see this.
You need a hand with that?
Let's sit it where you're sitting, where your phone is. This is a wood box that says WAA Records.
Which was mentioned in this book.
Right. And then on the inside,
Oh,
Harry B. Hutchins. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And this is just a wooden box. I'm sure that at some point they had all kinds of things in here. But we're using it for something this weekend for the Museum Under the Stars. And when I saw that back in the back yesterday, I said, boy, is that timely. I just thought, did you know that was there?
Yeah.
I
Did
did
you?
interspersed. When it arrived to us, it was full of the WAA records, which are all now in the archives.
There you go.
So, but it came full of the records, yeah.
Well, Harry.
And see, I didn't surprise Pete. I thought I would, but I didn't.
Oh, well, it's in there. It's in there. That box that was mentioned.
While we're on that subject, I've got a question for you. Mr. Hutchins was a Wabash guy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Had a
was
great
his
cleaning
name
business.
mentioned in the Hall of Fame nominations?
No,
I think it
Guess
should
what?
be.
yeah.
there's another nomination for us.
It's a,
Yeah.
it's a continuing thing.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Remind me of that after we're done.
Okay.
Go way back to that first game that I mentioned, the one out there in the hog lot. They had to pass the hat among the players to raise money to buy a football.
Oh,
One
my.
football is all they had. And of course, it was a true pigskin in those days. And as the team progressed, players had to they had to come up with money for their helmets and their playing clothes.
What helmets?
Yeah. Those leather,
Yeah, those leather
no
earmuffs.
face mask, right?
No, these guys were tough. And I think that's one of the reasons that you had to be tough. That's one of the reasons that the game caught on in steel mill towns, for example, factory towns. And that's the other reason too, that it became a Sunday game, because people worked 6 days a week in those years. You didn't have Saturday off. And I just wonder how these people ever found time to practice.
Yeah, I was thinking the same
Maybe
thing.
maybe they didn't practice.
Well, and think about them going to work on Monday after playing
Yeah.
a football game on Sunday.
But they did.
Of course they did.
There's a picture in this book of Newt Rockney dressed to play for Notre Dame, and the picture is almost comical because he's got this leather helmet on and it's kind of cocked sideways, and he's holding up his pants with what appears to be a dress belt. But,
Again, let's hold this up so people can see this. If you're any kind of a sports guy, I read this cover to cover, and it's interesting.
Yeah, you want that. Now, we could go over statistics here and whatnot, but that's pretty dull. I'm gonna talk about what this football team meant to Wabash.
Right.
Because it was it was an adhesive, so to speak, for this town. There was a lot of camaraderie. The town supported the football team amazingly well in the beginning. That interest dropped off as we got closer to 1912, and I'm not sure why. And the team was formed around the nucleus of the old community gym, which sat on the hillside right up here. The first headquarters seemed to have been over on Canal Street. There's a little shop over there called Good Appliances on
Right.
the south side of the street. And when I was a young guy, there was quite a fancy filling station there. And the WAA seems to have bought what was the old Star Woolen Mill. There was a woolen mill over there, which was a longer building with no obstructions, no supporting posts inside. And that is where I think the first organized basketball game in Wabash was played.
Isn't that amazing?
It was just a few years after Naismith invented the game. But because it was an unobstructed floor in there.
Right. Wow.
But the WA then, when the community gym was opened up here, they moved to that side.
For those of you who don't know this, the community gym was situated, if you go to the end of Huntington Street, where the old Hoover Minor funeral home used to be, Huntington Street and Main Street, there is an open lot, and that's where it's set, correct?
Yeah. And they had their club rooms. There was I think it actually was an old house that sat there. But the club rooms opened up onto Main Street. And then the rest of the building, about 2.5 stories of stonework. There are pictures of it up here on the landing.
Right.
But the guys who played football for the WAA, that was a mark of pride for them. I remember some of the obituaries of these people in the 1950s and 60s. if you had played football for the WAA, you wanted that mentioned in your obituary.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting.
Sure.
And the town supported it, particularly, they had a run of Thanksgiving games to go to the WAA game on Thanksgiving became a tradition for a lot of families in this town. Of course, it was all on the Carroll Street field, which was where the high school played football.
I was gonna say, didn't you tell me at one point, maybe I misunderstood, didn't you tell me that the WAA would play on Thanksgiving, but there was also a high school game too?
Quite often, yeah.
That's
Now,
awesome.
the
Huh.
high school had an on again, off again schedule in those days. So sometimes they had a football team, sometimes they didn't. But, yeah, frequently it was a double header, and boy, that whetted the appetite.
And I read, and maybe it was in this, I read where there would be 2,500, 3,000 people show up for those games, and they were like it cost you a quarter to get in or something like that.
That much?
Yeah, it probably was a lot in
Yeah,
those
yeah,
days.
yeah.
They put a wooden fence around the perimeter of the property down there. And then, in the beginning, there weren't any grandstands. And you stood and watched the game, and you crowded along the sidelines. And they finally had to put up a second fence. They put up a wire fence right around the field to keep the crowd from encroaching on that. Oh, it was a different era.
A couple thoughts bounce into my mind there. I mean, when you talk about them putting that in their obituaries, these guys had to be like celebrities,
They were.
right?
They
I mean,
were in this
small
town.
pond, but they
Yeah.
were celebrities.
Yeah, they really were.
The other question I have for you, Pete, do you have any idea? You mentioned the building with the basketball game was shortly after Naismith invented the game. So do you suppose they actually had baskets still, beach baskets? Would they have had goals yet?
Good question. I don't know.
I just,
Surely if they used peach baskets, they'd knock the bottoms out. So
Well, I would hope so.
They traced the ball every time, which is what I'm told Naismith had to do in that first game in Springfield,
interesting.
Massachusetts.
There is a mural coming down the back steps here in the museum where you can see from like the river. Basically, Pete's figured it out. He told me, if you go stand in the middle of Smith Street at almost where the intersection of Carroll Street is, that's where this field was.
Yeah.
Okay, the streets weren't there yet. But if you go up and look, I took my wife down and did this. Go up and look at this picture, and I did it and blew it up. And I took my wife down there and stood there at where the RV park is now.
Yeah.
Stood there and looked, had that picture, and it's got the team they're playing. In fact, I think there's a copy of it in my little alcove back in the collections area. And you can see the courthouse off in the distance and three steeples of churches that are still there. And if you stand there and hold that up, you can see that same thing. It is so neat. That is just,
You can line yourself up with those landmarks,
Mhm.
and the standpipe also shows,
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Bill. I've said for years, Bill's wife is a saint, right? Nancy is a saint. Do you think Nancy was really interested in that, or was she humoring you?
To be honest, I'll be honest, I think she was humoring me until she saw it. Because
Okay.
she's kind of, when it comes to Wabash, she's pretty historic too. She is really about this town. If somebody comes into her shop out there and they ask about Wabash, she's gonna give them a quick verbal historic tour. And
Okay,
yeah,
that's fair.
but yeah, she was
That's fair.
humoring.
Okay.
She's a Chamber of Commerce booster.
Yes,
Yeah.
big time.
Yeah.
Mhm. Kind of like Susan.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, as I said, this, I intended this to be quite informal. Let me go back one step again.
Well, I apologize for.
No. That's what makes this an interesting show.
Okay, we'll take that.
Just a ray again. I thought, how many people remember Gus Gray or know his football background, we took our car into Petoskey, Michigan a couple of years ago for some work. And while we were waiting in there, an old fellow, probably younger than I am, old guy came in. And he had seen the sticker on our car out there.
Okay.
And he says, Gray Chevrolet, anything to do with the football player?
Oh,
And I said,
my.
yeah, his grandson runs the agency. And so this fellow obviously knew about Gus Gray and knew Rockney and their work with the
That's
with the
amazing.
Forum Pass. Some of the games that, well, let me talk about scheduling for a moment, because the scheduling for some of these games was strictly seat of the pants scheduling. Harry Hutchins would get on the telephone and call the manager of, let's say, a team in Fort Wayne, the Fort Wayne Friars, and he'd say, well, can we get a ball game this coming Sunday? Sometimes it was done just 2 or 3 days in advance. Not formalized at all. And the Friars turned out to be one of the great rivals of the Wabash team. And I don't think Fort Wayne ever beat Wabash.
You on that scheduling, why didn't they just get on their computer and talk?
They had carrier pigeons back
Yeah.
then.
Gus Gray wound up playing for pay after he left Notre Dame. He wound up playing for the Fort Wayne Friars for a year or two as a professional. Gus Gray and Newt Rockney roomed together at Notre Dame.
Gee whiz. Huh.
When I first became interested in this, I was going through some records, and here is Wabash WAA 28, Notre Dame 0. And I thought, wow, what are we into here? Well, what it was, most of the football players lived in the same dormitory, Corby Hall, C-O-R-B-Y, Corby Hall, on the Notre Dame campus. And on a Sunday, some of those would sneak off campus. Their coach didn't like this, and that's why they played under assumed names. So I'm wondering, did Newt Rockney ever play for another team? I know he didn't play for Wabash. Did he ever play on the Carroll Street field? We know Gus Gray did. And I think it's amazing that here is Gus Gray playing within sight of the place where he would soon or would eventually own an auto agency.
Within sight, you could throw a rock and hit it if it would have been there.
So I'd like to think that maybe Newt Rockney played there.
We can start that rumor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that.
Who's gonna prove you wrong?
You heard it, didn't you?
Yeah.
You heard it, Art.
Well, another question I've got while you're linking things like that, Jim Thorpe, now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but as I recall reading his life story 100 years ago, he was stripped of his medals, Olympic medals, because of accepting small amounts of money to play sports.
I believe
Is
that's
it
correct.
possible
I believe
that it was for
Yeah.
playing in this particular league?
could have been.
I mean,
They did restore his medals to him
yes,
later.
that's correct.
But you're right.
Posthumously, yeah.
Wow.
Well, as I say, I can't bring statistics here for every season and whatnot, but that, to me, that's not what the team was about. The team was about the pride of this town.
Yeah.
And,
Well, just, I think you and I talked about this a little bit, but in the Wabash County Athletic Hall of Fame, we inducted Gus Gray this year. Next year, we're going to start also inducting not only individuals, but teams. You can bet the WAA is gonna be one
Yeah,
of those that's gonna be
absolutely.
nominated.
Yeah, good
Mhm.
call.
Yeah, you have to. By 1912, Harry Hutchins had decided that it was time to pay more attention to his business. And after 1912, the team begins to disintegrate. I suppose that there were other reasons too. And a man named Billy Jones, no relation, a man named Billy Jones took over the team, and he changed the name slightly. And but he lost some of the better players. They didn't follow him like they had followed Harry Hutchins. And the team struggles on through 1916 and 1917. Of course, the World War I takes some of the younger people from town, some of the younger men. Eventually, that team falls apart. Billy Jones's team falls apart. But in the early 20s, a startup known as the Wabash, Wabash, I'll think of it in a minute. There was, at any rate, there was another effort to duplicate the WAA, but the problem was you couldn't duplicate the WAA. And then in the late 40s, Pete Risch with the Wabash Eagles tried to do the same thing. I mean, he wanted to restore that football pride.
In the early 20s, that team, and I don't recall the name of it, wasn't that Bill Milner and those guys?
Well, Red Milner.
Red Milner.
Yeah. Bill Milner
Was later.
comes along later,
Mhm.
yeah, as coach of a basketball team near
Right.
Fort Wayne.
Um,
Wabash Ramblers. That was
Ramblers, that's
Yeah,
right.
the Ramblers. Well, the Ramblers rambled for a couple of years, and then that was the end of that. And but the high school had some good teams at the same time. 1920, they claimed the state championship
Coached by
by Carpenter.
L.H. Carpenter.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
I'm getting an education today.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something else.
It's-
L.H. Carpenter, not only was he the football coach, and really more or less because they didn't have a coach, correct me if I'm wrong, but he also he coached a little basketball, he coached track and had several track state champions, and finished, I think, second in the state as a team twice,
maybe
Is that
so.
right? Something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, they claimed the state championship, untied, unscored upon, unbeaten,
Gee.
untied, unscored
Mythical
upon.
state champion.
Yeah, in 1920.
Mhm.
Imagine that.
And Lewell told a story one time. He could tell stories beautifully. And 1920, they go undefeated, and boy, they are swelled with pride and all this. So Lewell said, I scheduled Steele High School of Dayton, Ohio, for our opening game in 1921. And he said Steele would play us, but they didn't want to come here. The gate would not be as big as playing in Dayton. So he said, we went to Dayton. And here we were, the state champions in Indiana. But he said, I didn't realize how many players I was going to lose to graduation. So the team that I took to Dayton was not the same team that won the state championship. And he said, we won the coin toss, and we elected to receive. He said Dayton kicked off to us, and so, I can't remember who, ran it back for a touchdown. He said, now, we're ahead 6-0. We make the extra point 7-0. And then he raises it. He said, I want you to remember that. The final score, and maybe it was 88-7.
Oh,
Gave
my.
up 88 straight.
I don't think I'm exaggerating that, but, yeah, Leo told that, beautifully.
I love it.
Now, my brother-in-law Lane and Larry O'Connor and that kind of age group, they played on a team. I can't.
Wabash Express.
That's it,
Mhm.
yeah.
In fact, 2 months from today, we will have representatives from the Express here for the
Really?
show. Mhm.
Good deal.
So we may want to tell Lane.
I'll tell Lane to get over here, but.
Wasn't Larry the quarterback?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I
Lane was a
played some
quarterback.
basketball.
And
with
Lane
him,
was a
so I-
quarterback in Northfield. Lane played
He
quarterback.
was?
Yeah. Yeah.
I heard he was just a little small defensive back.
He
and
was.
He was good.
But he could play a little
Yeah.
quarterback too.
Okay.
We keep interrupting Pete.
No.
No, I,
That's-
well, I got several years ahead of the
Right.
story here, too. But I thought, well, Wabash Express is probably kind of born back then.
Mhm.
You know, the interests and stuff. They had fathers and grandfathers who said, get your rear end out there and play some football.
Yeah.
Sure.
My grandfather Jones decided he wanted to play for the WAA. And he finally got into a game. He said, I lasted 3 plays. He said, I decided that my sport would be fishing.
Non-contact.
Yeah.
But and that's the other thing, you know, those were the days when you put 11 guys out on the field, and in most games, those same 11 stayed the whole game.
Yeah.
You didn't have
Offense and
two teams.
defense.
Yeah, gosh, the one I remember, a fellow named Jess Reno, who, as I remember him, he was just a tiny guy, maybe no bigger than I am. But he was a prolific player for the WAA team. And another has nothing to do with the WAA, but you remember Otto Graham, the
Yeah.
great
Oh,
Cleveland
yeah.
quarterback. Well, he
Right.
married a Wabash girl, Beverly Collins.
Really?
And must have been in the 7th grade. The Browns had played Chicago. I forget whether the Cardinals or the Bears, because they were both in Chicago at that time. And somebody in our class, I can't remember who it was, said, well, Otto is going to stop on Monday, and he and his wife are going to be at the Collins house on North Wabash Street. So we got on our bicycles after school and we went up there and stood. Somebody got brave enough to go up and ring the doorbell. And Otto Graham came out,
Oh, my.
and he had a couple of bandages on his face and bruises. And I guess I decided at that time I would never be a football player. And I can't remember what he said to us, but he came out for a couple of minutes.
That's amazing.
Wouldn't that have been late 40s, early 50s, something like that?
Yeah, I was in probably
And-
7th grade, 40, 48, 49.
Wow.
And you hear these stories here about those guys that played then, and then Sunday you see all these things they wear and all
Oh, yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
I mean, these kids today, I mean, they're tough in their own way, and that's the time they live in. But imagine playing in those days. Gee.
Well, somehow, some way, my dad, back in the late 70s, acquired, somebody gave it to him or something, an old leather helmet. Oh, I know. Remember, and you may not, Bob Maddox was a head football coach at Wabash for 4 or 5 years. Lived next door to my parents out on Willard Drive at the time. And Bob had that helmet, and Dad got it. And we would be playing out in the backyard when we were home from college or whatever, and here'd come the old man, and he'd have that helmet on. And it was comical, but it was nothing more than a piece of leather with maybe some
Oh,
padding
yeah.
in it about like that.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah,
if they wore anything at all.
right.
Well, you see some of these pictures on
Mhm.
the front there.
Yeah.
Well, see, my high school never lost a game of football. Rising Sun,
Mhm.
too small to have a team. But our basketball coach would say, I will kick your rear ends and run you till you puke, puke, and puke if I ever see you playing football out there, because you get injured and stuff. Well, on Sundays, we'd sneak up to Aurora and Lawrenceburg and play their teams, but I mean, I get just a little bit of feel of playing without that stuff on, and that wasn't anything close to what these guys
Mm-mm.
did. Gee,
You were at Rising Sun.
have you heard of it?
Elmer Davis was from Rising Sun.
Okay,
Remember Elmer Davis, the newscaster?
that might have been
I
before
remember
my
that
time.
name. I remember the name.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, Elmer Davis. He came from Rising Sun. He had a flat Midwestern accent.
Well,
He was.
yeah, that happens
Imagine
down there in
that.
southeast
Yeah,
Indiana.
in the 1940s, he was one of the great newscasters.
Okay.
Really?
But it's funny you bring that up about playing. When I was in high school, again, early mid-70s, during basketball season, and we're playing a game on a Sunday. Here you go, Pete.
Sunday.
On a Sunday, on the horseshoe in front of Wabash High School. Okay, and several of the guys, Bobby Gaines, Rick Fedewaw, Arvin Copeland, Tim Ebbinghaus, a bunch of us. We had our 50th class reunion over the last weekend. We were talking about this, and it was early December, so it wasn't real cold, but we're out there playing like we
Yeah.
did about every Sunday. And Arvin Copeland was our running back, and he was pretty good. And he sprained his ankle in that game, and so to go play basketball the following week, we lied through our eye teeth when somebody said, "We guys were all out playing football on Sunday." No, we weren't. We were right in front of the high school on Miami Street. Everybody and their brother knew it.
Yeah.
But Arvin struggled until we got toward the end of the year before he was actually back.
Really?
Mhm.
There was a time back in the late 70s that we had a flag football league in Huntington. And there were teams from other communities. I don't remember if there was anybody from Wabash, but the rule of the flag football league, of course, was it was supposed to be non-contact,
Oh, yeah.
but the
Right.
line play was just like any other football
Mhm.
game. And the rule was you had one tackle before you got thrown out. So you know what happened? Everybody took their tackle, right? That just gave a free license, and it was rough. People were bloodied up. And
Oh,
so I
yeah.
can relate in a small way. It certainly wasn't at this level, but it was a lot of fun.
But to me, this whole discussion about the Wabash Athletic Association becomes the precursor, way back, but the precursor as to what we see today
Right.
and
Oh,
what
of
we've all been
course.
through
Yeah,
up
the
until
growth
today.
of that.
Well, especially when you hear the names Jim Thorpe, Newt Rockney,
Oh, I
Otto
know.
Graham.
Yeah.
Come on, these are legends.
Let alone the local guys like Red Milner and then Bill Milner and Pete Risch and some of these. I mean, it just
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
It's
amazing.
Yeah, another remarkable player from Wabash that I haven't mentioned, believe it or not, was Homer Showalter.
Yes.
And my image of Homer Showalter growing up here, he looked kind of like a teddy bear. And not an athlete, but he was captain of the Wabash College football team.
Huh.
And after he got out of college, he came back and played. Not in that 1900 or 1980, not in the 1898 to 1912 section, but he played for Billy Jones's team.
He's a Wabash College Hall of Famer,
Huh.
and if I remember right, he's a Wabash High School Hall of Famer, and he was also a 3-term mayor,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
So there's an awful lot of those kind of guys, and some of them are more heralded than others, but it doesn't take much to find those names.
No.
There's a bunch of them. Mhm. So,
Any questions from anybody out there?
Did these athletes have to try out? And were there a lot of them trying out to be on the team?
Good question.
Very good question.
Yeah, not that I have ever found.
Okay.
I mean, if you wanted to play, you just kind of showed up, maybe like my grandfather. And I'm sure the Wabash team was several points ahead before they put my grandfather in. But I don't think that there was. If you had the money to buy your own equipment and you had a willingness to play, I think they would try to find a spot for you.
Now to further answer that, Art, we'll find this out 2 months from now, but if I recall correctly, Pete Rich for the Express, they did have tryouts. And they had guys come from miles around, probably no different than this. But when Steve and Mike and those guys get here 2 months from now, we can get verification of that. But I'm pretty sure that it got to that point because it was so, back when Pete was doing it, it was very popular too. I mean, they were playing on Alumni Field under the lights, so.
Yeah.
Well, and they did have lights on the Carroll Street field, but that didn't go over. They played 1 or 2 night games. And I think they had 4 arc lamps on maybe the single pole.
Think about that.
And there's a story in one of the Plain Diggers from about 1948 or 49, claiming that the first night football game ever was played down here on Carroll Street. But that's not true.
It may not be true, but it's still a big deal because Major League Baseball didn't start night games until either 1937 or 39, I can't remember which. But think about that, that's 30 years later. So, and when you go down and look at where that field is or where it was, it's not a huge place.
No.
They had 100 yards, they were playing 100-yard fields.
See.
Amazing.
Can you imagine
Well,
trying to catch a long pass with 4 lights on a pole?
Yeah, well, that was one of the reasons it was not successful.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
So,
This is just a comment
Okay.
about Harry Hutchins. He had a son in your mom's class.
Yeah, Harry J.
His son, Harry, would have been born in 1911, which was Martha's birthday. So it could be that these guys that were playing in the WAA suddenly were married and having children.
Well,
Wow.
yeah.
And
No,
Well,
that's
the
no-
wives might
good
have
thought.
said-
You're exactly right.
enough, you stay home and help me with the kids.
Right.
Or if they were
That's-
mad at him, get out of the house and go play.
Well, there you
That's a great perspective, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I had somebody tell me years and years ago that if she threw a baseball out the door, I'd probably chase it. She might have been right back then. So, but yeah, I mean, there's just, I mean, this whole thing, and I mentioned at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony that this all would have, early on especially, would have a Wabash High School or a Wabash City flavor to it. But now we know why, because this
Yeah.
is where it starts.
Yep.
I mean, and football was the thing, but it wasn't just football. It was basketball, it was track, it was baseball with George Mullen. Oh, there's another one. There's a story I want Pete to tell that even though it's not about baseball. George Mullen was a Wabash guy. It was called Wabash George, and he was from here. Played for the Detroit Tigers for a lot of years, 12 or 13 years. To this day, Steve, you were there. You were there at the banquet. And he still owns as a pitcher a number of Detroit Tiger records. And Pete, he's not that old, but Pete had some interaction with George. Go ahead.
All right.
Well, my grandfather used to take me to the Elks Club. he wasn't supposed to, but he did. And George Mullen died in 1943, so this must have been, I would have been 7 years old maybe when I was born in 35. And at the old Elks Club now, which was down on the corner.
Mhm. Where the parking lot is
Yeah,
now.
converted from an old house. At the right-hand end of the bar was a little penny slot machine, orange in color. I remember that. And my grandfather would give me pennies to play the slot machine. Now, there's this, second grader in there pulling. And I won $1. I hit the jackpot. $1.
All right.
I remember this, $1.02. Wow, good money. And, I learned later that it was George Mullen who counted out the pennies, but I could see this good-sized forearm sliding those pennies, 2, 4, 6. I had no idea who George Mullen was, of course, but, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because George, to background, they had no baseball pensions or anything in those years, and he wound up his life as bartender at the Elks Club.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
We were talking about a guy that, in this era, probably would have been mentioned for induction into the National Baseball Hall of Fame with the records that he had, and maybe at some point he might be. I don't know.
He lived on North Cass Street, one of the 1 or 2 houses that they tore down when Walgreen built the drugstore there.
Okay.
That was where George lived.
Wow. So up around where the old 76 station used to be.
And
Wow.
he, when he was an active player, on off season, he would work at the paper mill, and he wanted to be there because that was heavy work, and that's how he stayed in shape through the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
It's amazing.
Well, Pete, thanks for coming on with us. You can't sit and talk to Pete Jones about anything without history becoming involved, and not necessarily him. You start asking him questions, am I right?
Right.
It's just, it's amazing. The man is a treasure trove of Wabash County history in any subject. So, thanks, my friend. We appreciate it.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Great.
A month from today, we will have Stan Leland. Speaking of baseball, Stan will come and he will discuss his journey through baseball up until now. Just a little, and I'll probably repeat this a number of times, but I was Stan's catcher in Pony League,
Okay.
and he was kind of wild then, but that's
You brought him in, though.
Oh, yeah.
You brought
Oh,
him
you
in.
hooked him in, yeah.
Because of
Yeah.
me, trust me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Stan was a pretty good pitcher even then. So,
Yeah.
so we'll discuss that and,
Oh,
hopefully-
one
Go.
more thing, is the man in the dirty raincoat, the detective would say at the end of his, who am I thinking of here?
Colombo?
Colombo.
Colombo,
Yeah,
yeah.
Colombo would stop after interviewing somebody. Oh, just one more thing.
That's right.
One more thing. When George Mullen was pitching for the Tigers, there was one season, and you will remember this name and I can't. Man from, not Disco, but help me out here. I'm stuck.
Oh,
Liberty Bills.
Hang on. Keep talking, I got it.
All right, man from Liberty Mills had a brief fling as being with the Tigers as a catcher. And so I thought that, that was remarkable. Two people from Wabash County forming the battery.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can't remember that man's name.
Did he live in Wabash when he played for Detroit and take the,
Partially, yes.
did he take the train or something?
Yes,
Oh, wow.
yes.
Play?
You take the train from here to Fort Wayne and then from Fort Wayne to Detroit.
Yeah.
That's what I read anyway.
Oh,
and
Yeah,
I-
he married Grace Ackerman,
Mhm.
and when he reported to the Tigers his first season, he got on the train here at the station, took the night train to Detroit, and he had signed a contract with the Washington Senators and with a minor league team in Charleston. And he had both those contracts at the same time that he had the Detroit contract.
Huh.
The story is that the Washington team caught wind of this, and they wanted him arrested. I don't know how he could be arrested for this, but anyway, the police hauled him off the train in Fort Wayne
Oh my.
and took him to the station in his nightshirt. Now, is that a true story? I don't know.
Well, apparently, from what I read, he there was a big shot lawyer out of Fort Wayne that somebody that he knew and got him out of it. But they had to yank him off the train and create an assumed name to get that done. At least that's what I read. Are you thinking about Freddie Spurgeon?
That doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, there's another one and I can't find it.
I probably wouldn't even recognize.
But it wasn't disco, it was Serbia.
Survey, okay, got it.
I've got it somewhere, I can't find it, but I've got it, so Pete's not wrong, trust me, not wrong. We just can't,
Next month's show.
Yeah, next month's show.
Teaser.
Yep, teaser for next month.
All right.
So, well, thanks for coming on with us, Pete, we
That's
really
been
appreciate it.
Thanks, Pete.
Yes, sir.
Thank you too for coming.
And we will, at some point, we'll have a follow-up on this, because
Okay.
there'll be people like Tom that'll say, well, why don't you bring Pete back, let's talk more football, because Tom was a football player. So, thank you much for being here. The gallery, thank you guys for coming. Art, Lizzie, appreciate that. So, we will be back and we'll do this again next month, 10 o'clock on the third Thursday of October. Thank you.
Very well done. Man, I got an education I didn't even get in high school. We're good.
But is it true?
Is it true?
You're amazing, Pete.
Yes, sir.
Amazing.
Oh, there.
You cannot not have even if it's 5 minutes, another education without it. If you talk to Pete for that
I don't know how you do it.
frequency.
Did Pete Risch actually play, or was he just coaching?
No, he actually played. He was. Give me a minute. I'll read you the bio.
Because he was my neighbor
Yep.
before, 99,